Chapter 6.
Draco wasn't quite sure what to anticipate during his ride on the Hogwarts Express. One certainty, however, was the absence of an invitation from the Grangers to watch Arsenal's soccer match. Draco repeated to himself that he wasn't perturbed by the Grangers likely judging him based on his father's reputation. It was understandable, given that he hadn't done anything to oppose his family's united demeanor. He hesitated to bring up Arsenal in his last 2 letters to Hermione before September, and she never mentioned it either. So, when Draco ran into her on the train, relief washed over him as Hermione pulled him into a hug, saying, "Hey there, Frankenstein." Unlike before, she was the first to step back this time. Together, they turned their gazes towards Ron and Potter sitting in the compartment, Ron's worn-out rat perched gloomily on his shoulder, clearly sharing Ron's sentiment towards Draco. "Ron, Harry, say hi," Hermione prompted. Hi," Ron mumbled, while Potter merely grunted. "I apologize," Draco began, closing the compartment door behind him. The anxiety from the previous year, which had caused him to hallucinate being pursued by fiendfire through the train, was still fresh but slightly less intense. "I'm sorry. Okay. My dad was completely out of line, and I regret not intervening." Draco directed these words particularly at Potter, who seemed most expectant of Gryffindor-like bravery from him. Potter and Ron had spent time at the Burrow over the summer, possibly mulling over their feelings about Draco. Draco noted a preference for pity over the icy disdain in Potter's eyes. Childhood amplified everything, including Draco's past devastated reactions to losing at Quidditch or disputes with Potter. As children, choices appeared monumental, without the dire consequences faced in adulthood. Eventually, Potter spoke up. "Why was your father in Knockturn Alley?" Instead of answering, Draco glanced at Hermione, who seemed lost in her thoughts, staring out the window with a resigned sigh. Draco wasn't entirely sure of the details himself, uncertain if it related to his father's designs regarding the Chamber of Secrets. What little he knew couldn't be shared. "Ron, your dad, you have to understand. I can't say much because your dad." "What?" Potter interrupted. "Are you afraid Mr. Weasley will successfully raid your home? You said your father was a Death Eater. If they're all captured, maybe the Dark Lord can't return. Draco, whose side are you on?" Draco felt he had made his stance clear by previously aiding Potter at the trapdoor and even stepping into Weasley's role during the battle as the Black Knight. The need to reaffirm his position before even reaching Hogwarts was aggravating. "He's my dad, Potter. What do you expect? That Ron won't report anything to his dad? Or that I should start feeding Ron information to take down my family?" Responding with anger was unwise, as it would only galvanize their resentment.
"I'm genuinely sorry."
"But you're demanding a lot from me." "Draco," Ron said gently, "maybe it would be better for you if your father was caught." "Hermione informed us of your apology in the letter," Potter interjected, "but asking us to understand your dad's choices, aligning with the man who killed my parents, and to still defend him. It's asking a lot, Draco. Please, if you have any information, it's crucial." "I don't have to follow your commands, Potter," Draco retorted tightly and exited the compartment. He ambled slowly, convincing himself that his anger demanded composure control. Deep down, he hoped Hermione would follow, or at least call out to him. Yet, as he made his way through the corridor to the train's rear, he dealt with a mix of indignation and guilt. A secret connected to his father potentially endangered both Hermione and the Weasley girl, though they hadn't realized this. And before he knew it, he found himself at the train's last compartment once more, regardless of the changes he imagined had occurred over the past year aboard the Scarlet train. He longed for his trunk, eager to dive into his notebooks, examining the second cover once more. He doubted it would present anything new regarding the enigmatic blue loop, yet persisted, knowing the solution lay with the Chamber of Secrets reopening once more. "Hello," a soft, airy voice greeted him unexpectedly. Draco spun around, slightly startled to discover the compartment wasn't empty. "Lovegood," Draco stammered, steadying himself by gripping the cabin's edge, as the miniature version of the unmistakable Ravenclaw from Dumbledore's army shimmered into view. Luna, whom he'd seen daily during her wrongful imprisonment at the manor he'd just left, always greeted him with a serene smile. She maintained her cheerful demeanor even when Draco missed visiting for a day or bore no outside news to share, despite witnessing him perform the Cruciatus Curse in their dungeons. Before 5th year, Draco never noticed this Ravenclaw a year his junior. Recognizing her instantly, her unique wispy, white blonde hair and gentle smile hadn't changed. "Indeed," remarked Luna Lovegood, her smile brightening her face. "I'm Luna Lovegood, and it's nice to make your acquaintance." She didn't inquire how he knew her name, leaving him worrying that she might know more than she let on until he reminded himself of her reputation. Luna was often dubbed Loony Lovegood and considered eccentric by many, yet during their time at Malfoy Manor, she had displayed more composure and sanity than anyone else there. I must you, Lovegood. I've got to leave." Draco stumbled over his words before rushing out of the compartment, his breath unsteady, starting to quicken and almost failing. With no empty compartments left, he ended up forcing his way into one occupied by Slytherin's second years Vince, Greg, and Blaise, who was relaxedly observing his mates devour a pile of sweets from the trolley, sitting exactly where Draco used to sit. Alarm rippled through them as his hasty entrance disrupted their peace, with nerves tangible when they recognized the identity of their uninvited guest. "For what it's worth, Draco, whatever Theo might have said, I haven't been spreading anything negative about you during the break," Blaise blurted, interpreting Draco's labored breathing as a sign of looming wrath aimed at him. With effort, Draco fixed an intense stare on him. "I'm well aware of your antics, Blaise. Make yourself scarce while you have a chance." Without a backward glance, they left behind their forgotten candies. Draco was slightly astonished when neither Vince nor Greg attempted to reclaim their sweets. As they advanced towards the enchanted carriages leading to Hogwarts, his gaze fell upon Luna Lovegood, recognizing her as one who might also perceive the Thestrals. The rumors of her peculiar behavior were certainly not without basis, but were often exaggerated. Nearby, a group of Ravenclaw-leaning girls appeared, shocked at what seemed to them like Lovegood stroking and whispering to the empty air. Draco drew a long, deep breath, allowing the ambient magical aura of Hogwarts to soothe his nerves back to regular breathing patterns while internally critiquing the oblivious girls. Though, to be fair, even if they could witness the Thestrals as he did, it would have indeed made an unusual spectacle. He entered the carriage alongside the Slytherin second-year boys, realizing only once aboard that his presence induced a palpable fear amongst the group. Theo looked queasy. Blaise maintained his wary demeanor that echoed his earlier retreat, while Vince and Greg silently feared guilt by association. Draco berated himself privately for having resorted back to intimidating his housemates just to secure his own space. His aim of mending Slytherin relations was off to a shaky start. Content with the silence, Draco mulled over how long Potter, and perhaps Ron and Hermione, might remain furious with him, pondering if their animosity would lead them to relinquish their study table. His reflections were interrupted abruptly by Theo exclaiming, "Draco, it wasn't my intention." Sighing with annoyance, Draco questioned if he would need to hex his housemate on the very first evening of the term to maintain his protected reputation. "What was it you didn't mean, Theo? Please be more precise." Perhaps something in Draco's tone convinced them of his knowledge. They began speaking in unison until Draco silenced them simply by producing his distinctly curved wand. "One voice at a time, if you please." Since Blaise was the one to speak first, he may proceed with explaining. "What's being said about me, Blaise?" "Nothing negative, truly," Blaise insisted swiftly, casting nervous glances around. Just the rumor that, despite your father's protests, you're actually queer because you fancy Theo." To Draco's relief, the release he felt when Theo rather than Potter was mentioned was undeniable. "And you, Theo, did you find yourself struggling to resist my alleged unwanted attentions?" Draco's sarcasm made Theo shrink. Vince and Greg, any contributions to these claims? They almost shook their heads off in their haste to deny. They were involved.
Tell Potet.
Blaise instigated it. Fantastic. Cursing one would mean cursing them all. Remember what I've said about gossip? I intended to return this year civil and courteous to each of you despite your measurably lacking magical abilities compared to mine. Yet you find amusement in schoolboy gossip about me? Disgraceful to think of Slytherins this way. If you dare risk gossip, do so with something of substance. They'll know it was you, Blaise blurted out before raising his hands in apology when Draco's gaze landed sharply on him. Calm down, Blaise, Draco drawled. We're not officially back at school yet, so I'm inclined to be lenient, just this once. Their evident fear sufficed. Recur to this behavior, however, and the outcome will be far more intense. He delighted in mimicking Severus's emphasis and relished its impact on them. For now, a singular warning will do, given the truth of what you were saying. Draco realized they misunderstood him only when he disembarked the carriage first and instinctively extended a hand to Theo, who recoiled from the gesture as if warding off a serpent. With the Chamber of Secrets once again causing concerns and the topic of snakes becoming quite sensitive, Draco figured it wise to stash away his magical snake watch. Its habit of unfurling and occasionally hissing made it a liability in these times. However, Theo found himself startled, reacting as if an actual deadly serpent had suddenly confronted him, even though the watch was absent.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this chapter, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to stay updated with more audiobooks. Happy listening!